If as a GM you have not had a player come and sit down at your table and say, "Oh crap, I forgot my character sheet at home on my desk. What are we going to do?" Or they forget their books, or they forget their dice, or they forget their mini, or they forget all of them. If it hasn't happened to you yet, I'm sure it will very soon. When I was a player, and granted it's been a few months since I've been able to actually play in a game, I would always play Pathfinder Society. Living in a large metropolitan area, it was very easy to find a game on just a couple days' notice and be able to sit down at any table and roleplay. It was great. So when I was a player, this 2-inch thick 3-ring binder was my player folio, my player binder, my player folder. This is how I kept all of my characters organized. Now, granted, this is very thick. This is about 15 different characters. And when you're sitting down and making these for your players, they'll only have one character. So it'll not be this thick and substantial. But I will admit, and this is a prime example, that I am pretty finicky when it comes to being organized. And as a GM, I'm probably even worse. So what we're going to do today is I would like to go over, since we just talked about session 0 in the last couple episodes, before our first session, I always make up a player folder or a player binder to help keep them organized when we start to play. Now, these particular folders and binders are really great, especially if you have brand new players who have never played an RPG before, so all the rules are just totally foreign to them. This will really help them be able to follow along and interact and feel more at ease at your table when we first start. And so, without any further ado, let's go to the Game Master's Vault and find out how we make a player folder. When it comes to creating a folder or a binder for your players, there's a couple different ways that you can go about it. The same kind of information goes in each one of them. But one way is by going with a 2-pocket folder and a notebook. Now, when I do mine, I make out a special label that has their character name and their little character picture on each one of them. And they are also color-coded. Red folder, red notebook, and I can also show you later if you wanted to see it. I use an initiative tracker that's basically just a black stick, and I used color-coded clothespins, say that 5 times fast, on this stick, and so they will know, hey, I'm the red character. Everything that I have player-wise is red. I know that my clothespin is red. I know I go after the blue guy, and the blue guy is so-and-so. So it just helps give an overall cohesiveness to the game. But anyway, this is one option to do. The other option would be an actual 3-ring binder. And the main differences of why you would want to use one over the other is space at your table. If you have a lot of players or a really small table, you want to do the 2-pocket folder and the notebook idea. And the reason why is that your players can have their notebook open, they can be taking notes, they can have their character sheet that they can flip on top of it when it's a combat encounter, for example, and everything is in a tight, constrained little space. If it's a little more spread out, like my table is, I have a pretty big table, and I've got 6 seats around it. I could do more. I've had as many as 9. But with 6 seats, 1 on each end and 2 on each side, a 3-ring binder is nice because then the player can have their character sheets spread out. They can have their dice tower, their dice tray, whatever, their drink, their soda, and everything can be more spread out and everybody will feel a little more comfortable. And you can do that with a 3-ring binder, whereas you can't if you've got a really small cramped space. So let me take a moment. I'm going to switch the camera around to point down and I'll actually show you what I put inside my player folders. All right, so let's start off with the notebook 2-pocket folder idea. The notebook is just a notebook. It's only there for the player to take notes in, and this is actually Sarah's folder and notebook, and so as you can see, Sarah's taken notes and done quite a bit of doodling during our campaign sessions. So this is basically all it's for. Easily to just have it sit there to take notes, whatever you need. And again, like I said, put the character sheet, whatever, right on top of it. But this is what goes into an actual folder. And again, this is Sarah's actual folder. I just pulled this right off of the shelf. So in one pocket, we have her character sheet. And again, we use Hero Lab. She can use this to write all over, to track her resources, all of those kind of things. Again, during combat, just put it right over the top. She can make her rolls, whatever. So that's one thing in the front pocket. Let's see all the other fun stuff that we've given Sarah. She has a sheet. She has a magical totem that turns into an owl bear. These are the stats for the owl bear. When we first started, I gave them not only their backstory, which I typed out. It's not overly long, but I take all those questions that I asked during session 0 and I put it in a kind of a timeline, more cohesive, easier to follow backstory. So I give them a copy of that. And then I also type out another letter specifically for the players that your backstory is one thing. That's your past history. The letter that I give them right before the first session is, this is basically what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours of your life. So it's a little more in the now, a little more current than their actual backstory. Let's see, here's a handout that we did. She actually had to miss a session, and so as part of the story, she went to another town to figure out if one of the members of the party was actually a murderer or not. So this is the information that she found while she was away. I do a pre-game checklist, just something for them that's easy to go through to remind themselves of things that they need to do. Things like reviewing your spells, what do they want to accomplish, all that kind of stuff. And we've got a map of the main town that they started in. We've got the specific months of the year, days of the week. We've got a couple other maps in here. Sarah's character is actually a barbarian, so where she came from was actually way up here, and she traveled down where she met the other players. So she's got a couple different maps in here of how she actually got down to where she was at. The house rules, this is again something that we covered in the session 0 video. So all of that is basically in her like little handout kind of folder in the front, the more important stuff. I also found these online, which I thought were pretty cool. It's a little combat flow chart. Again, this is great for brand new players to know what happens, what's a full round move and standard action, those kind of things. Your more experienced players, this is just like a little quick refresher. Again, another copy of a map inside here. I found these combat cheat sheets and these magic cheat sheets just by doing a Google search online. These are specific to Pathfinder, but I know that you can find them out there for D&D or basically whatever kind of game you're playing. Just put the name of the system and cheat sheet behind it. I'm sure you're going to find something. But this is really nice because it talks about what provokes an attack of opportunity, what the conditions are and what they mean, what they do to you if you're fatigued or whatever, nauseated. It also has spell areas and stuff like that to know if you do have a caster. If it talks about a cone, what kind of shape that actually looks like. That's a cool little thing to have. And then in the back of her specific folder, she has a horse named Goliath. So here's Goliath's stat sheet. Now, Sarah plays a barbarian. She plays a human barbarian. And so I have a sheet that I typed out. You can also print this off if you have the PDF of the specific rule book or the player's handbook, whatever, since she's human. I have all the human traits and all that kind of stuff inside there. And I also printed off specifically her class, which is barbarian. So all of that information is right there for her. She wouldn't have to look up, go grab a book, because everything about a barbarian is printed off for her from the PDF. So that's basically what is in Sarah's two-pocket folder. And again, this would be if you have more space constraints, you'd want to use something like this. If she needed to look up something on the magic cheat sheet or the combat cheat sheet, she can certainly do that and put that right over her notebook like so. And it's very easy to keep everything more constrained. Now let's take a look at the 3-ring binder. And this is actually Jake's 3-ring binder. Jake plays a paladin in one of my other games. So again, you want to find the ones with the pockets inside of them, of course, for your 3-ring binder. I do like the ones with the clear sheets that go all the way around. I think it's very cool to have a picture of the player's character, their name on it. You can do it on the side. I haven't done that for his character, but it's very simple and easy to do with free programs that are out there on the net. You don't even need Photoshop or anything fancy. You can download a program called paint.net. That's primarily what I use when doing things like this for players. So this is Wynn's 3-ring binder, and again in the front folder we have a map of their major city and all the NPCs, maps of where he originally came from, maps of where they're at now. We've got a map of another city that they've been to recently. Handouts, these are different anchors. If they get a handout, they found this cave. This was the actual cave drawing that they found inside the cave. And he also found a book, and this is a synopsis of each one of the chapters. Originally, when I gave this to him, I cut these little strips out, and he could only basically read one chapter per day, was what I allowed him. But since he's read the whole book now, I give him a little synopsis, all in one piece. And let's see. And then, since Jake's character is a paladin, I have the paladin code right in the very beginning. Being a paladin, this is probably one of the most important things to a paladin, but there's another reason why I have this as the first sheet. Another thing that you'll notice too with this, with the 3-ring binder, is that I use the clear sheet protectors with a 3-ring binder and not with the 2-pocket folder, and I'll show you why in just a second. But the paladin sheet on the front, the reason I did the one on the front is because when you open it up, now he can look at more of his character sheet this way. And again, we do all of the character sheets on Hero Lab, so he's got all of his stats, all of his equipment, all that kind of stuff inside here. But the reason why I do the clear pocket or clear sheet protectors is when they're tracking resources. Give the player a dry erase marker and they can cross off what they're using during the game, whether it's the number of arrows that they use, the number of bolts in this case, and it's very easy to once you buy some more or your spells renew for the day, just lick your finger and boom, it's all gone. So I do really like the sheet protectors inside here. Some of the other things that Jake has specifically for his character, he has a magical greatsword. Again, the same combat cheat sheet and the same magical cheat sheet. I give this, the combat and magical cheat sheets, I give that to every player. Whether they're a spellcaster or not, they all get that, so they all kind of know. It just makes sense that a character in any fantasy setting would know how magic works. They would know how combat works, even if that's not the focus of their particular class. Again, you have months of the year, days of the week. Since Jake's character is a paladin, knowing things about religion would just come naturally for a paladin. So here I list all of the deities, their alignments, their main domains, all that kind of stuff. He would know that if he ran across a statue of Desna, for example, he would know the alignment and all that kind of stuff. That would just make sense. Now, the player may not know that, but the character definitely would, so that's why this is in here. And again, the combat flowchart. In the back, I have some loose leaf paper that he can use to take notes on, some graph paper, if he so desires. Jake's character is an elf, so again, in the back, I've got all the elven race traits and all that kind of stuff. I have all the information about being a paladin inside here, so again, he wouldn't have to look anything up in the book because I already printed those specific sections out. And then again, if you're doing anything where alignment or deities are very important in your game, print out the information about their specific god. We do a homebrew world, but it's basically geographically homebrewed. We still use Pathfinder rule set, we still use Pathfinder gods, Pathfinder days of the week, those kind of things. But since Jakey's character is a paladin of Yomade, all the information is in here on his goddess. If you're doing a homebrew where you're creating your own deities, again, put something specific in there for everyone's deity, especially if they're going to be more religious than not. If they're following a certain god, basically in name only and not really caring about it, it's not as big a deal. If they are doing handwritten character sheets inside instead of a computer program where it can print off spells, for example, he's only got 2 spells as a paladin, but wizards would definitely have more. The nice thing about Hero Lab is I can print out everything about their spells on there, so they wouldn't have to look those up. But if you do a handwritten character sheet, no matter what system you use, especially for the casters, find and print off some way of doing the spells, or have them get spell cards if they're available for that particular system, like D&D would. But that's pretty much what goes into my folders. So when a player first comes, they have these sitting on the table. They can grab their particular folder with their color, and then they can go to town. They don't need to worry about a bunch of books. They don't. Another thing that I was going to mention is that this is a system that's going to work easier for me since all of my games are at my home. So they can leave their 2-pocket folders, their notebooks, their binders, whatever. They can leave those here. They have a special spot on one of my many bookshelves, and that's where they stay. They don't take them home with them. them. They really could. I mean, I'm not going to be a total a-hole about it, but what one of my newer players does is he uses his cell phone and he just takes a picture of his notes. He takes a picture of any handouts that were given out during the day, so he'd have them. He has the same Hero Lab program at home, and so he's got access to his character sheet, and he takes pictures of all the other stuff, so he can certainly ruminate on anything going on in the game outside of the game and doesn't have to take all of this kind of stuff back with him. Now, if you're playing at a game store, or if you are traveling to somebody else's home, then you want to try and make it as simple and easy as possible. You don't want to be carrying around 14 pounds worth of folders and binders and all that kind of stuff for your players. It just depends on how responsible they're going to be. So, but like I said, most of my players, I run 2 different campaigns right now, each of them with 5 players, and I think there is about 8 or 9 of them that keep their folders here all the time. There's only one person, I think, that does not, and no, 2. There's 2 that do not, and they actually have a game bag. The game bag never leaves their car, so if they're going to game, they have it with them, even if it's a last-minute thing. But so if you found any of this information useful, if you have any questions about other cool things that you could put into a binder or a player folder to help keep them organized, just leave a comment down below. If you got some cool ideas from this particular episode, give us a like, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for some more cool ideas from the Game Master's Vault. All right, so there you go. After about 10 minutes of hand modeling, that's how you make a character folio, a player binder to help keep your players organized. And that's that. Well, I gotta go feed the halflings. Is it second breakfast or is it 11's now? I don't know. Anyway, see you, nerds.